Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Light Council series. I am so excited to have my guest Laura today. But first, allow me to introduce myself for those of you that don't know me, that are new to me. My name is Elizabeth Planson. I am a soul purpose, soul gift activator, spiritual mentor, and healer, and the creator of the Purpose and Abundance Activator Method, where I'm helping you clear out your limitations, clear out your blocks, and elevate and activate you to your next level purpose and abundance. So, Laura, I would love to welcome you to the show, and I would love for you to share who you are, how you love to serve others and help the world.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for inviting me on. My name is Laura. I am the founder of Healing with Spirit and Healing Trauma with Spirit, and my podcast is Triggers in Spiritual Medicine. I'm the author of these two books here, Secrets to Healing and Feisty.
Mm.
And I'm a multi-generational, multidisciplinary healer and intuitive. I'm a sacred activist. I'm a writer, artist. I'm a Jikiden Reiki teacher. I'm a facilitator. And I'm also an activist in domestic violence as well, and a survivor of domestic violence. So I find weaving both in is so important because I feel like it's reflective of where things get broken and where things get amiss over the 20 years I've been doing this work. So I help folks dig down to the root issues and to the layers, and I'm a weaver. And I'm an alchemist. I guess I don't really like alchemists, but I'm an initiated crone, so I'm a grandmother as well of two children. And so I'm a believer of we cannot heal our stuff, so to speak, without addressing root issues. And the biggest root issue, the elephant in the room, if I may say, is the systems of oppression. Whether however that plays into your life. But I know when I started addressing this with victims of sexual assault, I started seeing a pattern, 10, 20 years ago. And when we self blame, self shame, I mean, those belief systems aren't stuff that we manufactured. Those belief systems is what society puts on survivors. And so these are some of the systems of oppression and belief systems that we a lot of times have to unpack and basically unlearn and relearn. There's concepts in the indigenous Japanese teachings that I think a lot of us in the West teaching, like for instance Reiki, have forgotten. Like we see Reiki in the West as a stress relaxation therapy. It's a hands-on, move my hands around. I do a lot of stuff, and we're good. In Japan, it's really about getting centered and focusing on cleaning out our stuff inside first. And the principles, which, and I get, because I'm praying that this lands well with listeners that might be Western trained. I taught Western Reiki for 6 years. And so I know because I did a lot of the same thing that probably every other teacher that might be listening did too, until I understood what I might have been missing. And we don't know what we don't know until we learn that we were missing something,
Right.
right? So, and like in the West, we call it like the Reiki principles, and I always wondered something, for instance, like, why do we say it in English? And boy, it doesn't really sound like too important. And that's because translating Japanese to English, for instance, doesn't translate well.
Right.
And so when you say it in Japanese, you can actually feel the medicine. And so understanding the importance of words. And then I started understanding that in other cultures, other indigenous cultures, especially those that for centuries, millennia, didn't have a written language, they understood the power of the word. And understanding, like we hear this all the time, mind, body, spirit. But what the hell does that really mean? I mean, we say it all the time, right?
Right.
And like, but do we sit and really understand what that means? And I think it's understanding when we go to these really rooted lineages, we can understand what we're missing instead of going like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get to the next phase? Why can't I just heal this one thing? It's because we don't know what we don't know.
Mm. Yeah, well, what
And
I
it,
found was interesting with healing is, for me personally, is like the layers, right? Like, because I thought I healed something, and then when it's like, it's time for something to come up again, or like it's time to heal something, what do I need to heal? The same thing comes up again, and then it comes up again. And remember getting frustrated, I'd be like, what the heck? I've healed this so many times. Like, why am I
yeah.
continuing to have to heal this again and again?
So this is where I've learned, and I'm really starting to learn and understand this. It's so funny because growing up and I mean, I'm 50, I'm going to be 55 years old, and I remember growing up and being told to master anything takes you 20 years. That's if
Mm.
you do it every day. And
Mm-hmm.
I think as Americans, we have commodified healing as a capitalist structure. And if we cannot heal until we actually admit that hard truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but it's like when we've commodified it, then we don't really understand what we're missing. And then we keep repeating and we can't seem to I've healed this, I've healed this, I've healed this, I've healed this. And then my question is, if it's then did we really? And so the medicine that I've learned, that I'm learning, and I feel like after 20 years, I am just starting to understand. I'm 55 years old and I am just starting to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, especially in roles of like systems of oppression. Understanding, for instance, like anti racism and all these other things really can help us understand why we can't pierce the layers.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Because again, it's things that are in the subconscious, and if we're dealing with things that are from a social structure, from a societal structure, from a what we've been indoctrinated to believe and think, and then how much of those structures. I remember learning from Eckhart Tolle. He said once, "Are your thoughts your own, or are they part of the collective consciousness?"
Right.
Right? So it's like this whole thing, and it's not to be like, oh my god, that I haven't. I don't want you to feel like if you're listening, like, oh my god, I barely scratched. I got too much. I can't do that. I'm here to tell you, yes, you can.
Mm.
Yes, you can. You're talking to somebody who is diagnosed with complex PTSD and multiple sexual assaults by three different men, married to a domestic abuser for 9 years, couldn't get out for 20 years because of family court sanctioned abuse, and growing up in a household where my father put a gasoline tank in the middle of the house, so he was going to burn the whole house down with all of us in it. So I'm off all my meds, and I'm not sitting here to toot my own horn. But what I am saying is, I'm also a believer that I cannot help somebody if I haven't done that deep layer of stuff and
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And so what I've found interesting is like I don't get triggered by like the stories that I just mentioned to you anymore,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And to me it's like the triggers, for instance. The triggers are like we shame them. We want to shove them away, don't we? Like we take the triggers like, "Oh, I don't want to feel this. Oh, I'm so triggered right now." Instead of taking a pause, like I have this protocol: stop, pause, breathe. What's the action step, right? So if we stop and pause, we're like, oh, geez, okay, this trigger's coming up. What does this really mean? What is it
Yeah.
showing me? And see it as like an internal GPS, just as a guide to show you where the gold is. It's not there to hurt you. It's to show you
Mm-hmm.
where the magic is. And that's hard for us to understand, maybe, and grasp, because that's not what we've been conditioned to believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are
Well,
like some of these like little layers and little weavings, and I see like I went from like healing those issues to now I'm going, well, you know what? I want to be able to go in and heal the generational piece. So my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren won't have to live through this. Part of what all of us are living here is to be the future ancestor that we wish we had today.
mm, yeah.
And we are all here tasked to do some very big work. And I know it's a lot for so many. It's
Mm-hmm.
so many. It's funny, I found this paper today that I wrote a note on a few months ago, and it says, I am the prayer, the vision, the grandmother. You have the strength you seek within you. I am you. Remember, remember, I am your ancestor. I am the wisdom keeper, the medicine in your memory, the medicine in your DNA, the mountain of your lineage, the oceans in your veins, the oak in your bones, and the fire in your womb.
So what was that channeled from?
I have no idea. I've been
So,
doing a lot of that this year.
mm-hmm.
Is I think I'm being groomed right now by the spirit world to be a future elder.
And what do you mean by a future elder?
Meaning, even though I've been initiated as an elder, I don't feel I've earned the level of wisdom that's needed to be an elder.
But like what is an elder? Like who decides who's an elder and like what constitutes as an elder? Because like there's so many different ways to that you could look at what an
Right.
elder is. So like what is that in terms of
So to me,
spirituality in the world?
this is something that I have been blessed to witness. I think, especially if you are a white European descent,
Mm-hmm.
we have lost the magic of what an elder is.
Mm-hmm.
We have lost what sisterhood is. We have lost what community is. And it especially escalated after the burning times of witches, and we have still yet to recover. So
Mm-hmm.
until we have healed those roots, we'll continue to repeat those patterns. And because I've gone to these various, over the last 20 years, indigenous cultures and teachers, like my elders, my teachers are all considered wise elders. My teacher in Japan is a wise elder.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the elders were back, the way of our ancestors. They were the wisdom keepers of the community. They were the
Mm-hmm.
ones who held the communities together. They were the judge, they were the jury, they were the nurturer, they were the conflict resolutor, whatever you want to call that. They were the ones that you went to for counsel.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that led the communities. Okay? But when the colonizers started invading these indigenous communities, the elders were the first to be slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking thousands of years to repair some damage. Like when I say like I'm healing the lineage now, I'm going back 7 to 10 generations back to heal those lineages of my ancestors
Mm-hmm.
so we can break the cycle to what we're witnessing in the world today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it comes hand in hand. Our personal healing is one aspect because we can't show up communally and collectively if we don't do our own personal work.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said, like, do we ever really fully heal? Like, I see people all the time, oh, I'm fully healed. When we're fully healed. And I'm like, really? Like, do we ever fully heal? It's just different layers or different relationships on how we show up. I run a pilgrimage to Ireland every year.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually go there. It's a 6-month program because we spend 4 months in a container on Zoom preparing and tightening the container. So when we go together in these intimate groups and do like the stuff that we're talking about in Neolithic caves that are 8,000 years ago, they were doing ceremonies and knowing how to show up in proper relationship. And those are all things I think we're all learning. How do we show up in proper relationship to the spirit world? I remember, for instance, I had an indigenous elder teacher. We went out for a walk one day and I noticed this beetle and it was quite fascinating. And I knew it was a message from spirit. And I went to pick it up so nobody would step on it and it wouldn't crawl on my hand. And she said to me, "It's not crawling on your hand because you didn't ask permission first."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What?" She's like, "You didn't ask permission." So I asked permission and shit you not, like it crawled on my hand. And I sit and I reflect. I'm like, how many times did I do things, even with good intention? And I think this is where we go wrong in our healing practices as healers or as spiritual leaders. We think intention is everything, and
Mm-hmm.
intention can cause harm, and that is part of bypassing. So it is understanding. I do a lot of work in communities about safety and consent
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's not a lot of places that address that. And
Yeah, but I think also like just really defining intention too, because intention is everything in my opinion, as far as
Mhm.
like when I'm doing my own practice, like it could be I have this intention of with this goal in mind. And I'll just give you an example, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if I do Kundalini yoga, right?
Uh-huh.
And in it, the way I teach in the way that I do it, if for instance with Kundalini yoga, it's about holding poses for a period of time, right? For three
Hmm.
minutes, right? If you can't hold the pose for 3 minutes, it's okay to put your arms down with the intention of, seeing yourself doing it, right? The visibility of you doing it. So I think there's this like kind of difference of you have intentions of doing well, but yes, anytime you're healing anybody, right, or anything, you should ask for consent, right? Or two, also like you should let them know, but also at the same time, like I truly believe you can send love to somebody without consent because you want to help them rise up, right? And it's kind of like, there was the studies in the 90s where Washington D.C. came together and they did the mass meditation, where they're sending love to the city, and it actually did reduce crime by like 25% or something like that, right?
Yep.
And I don't, in my mind, did that cause harm because they didn't ask everyone in the city consent to do this healing, or did because they were sending this loving healing energy to the collective? Is that what we need more of?
I think this is where discernment comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And because I totally understand what you're talking about, right? And the discernment piece would be if we're just doing that, this is where we have to be understanding because I know some people will say, well, like for instance, like with Reiki, can I add Mother Mary to it, right? And that's fine if that's your religious belief. But to somebody else, that may not be their belief, and without their consent, that could be violating their personal boundary, right? So I remember I had somebody call me once asking me if I could do distant Reiki on their son in another state. And I said, "Will he know about it?" And he said no. She said no. And I
Right,
said, I can't do that
right.
because that's like Superman with X-ray vision upskirting every girl and looking at you know what because he
Mm-hmm.
can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's like a fine line of discernment of because we have these conversations all the time of when when is that okay and when is it not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me it's like when somebody says to me, "Oh, I did Reiki on you." I don't appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I don't appreciate that isn't because of the Reiki. It's because, first of all, I have a choice group of people I want Reiki from because I
Mm-hmm.
trust, I have safety with them, I have consent with them. But if somebody just does it without asking me, that's like Superman upskirting me, and that's
I hear
violating
what
my
you're
energetic
saying.
boundary.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. And I'm the same way. If someone asks me to do a healing on or even like if you're doing a reading, right? Like you don't do readings for people that aren't there, right? Like without the
You could
consent.
you could have all the good intention in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget because I worked in a medical office. And somebody came to me for one thing, and I asked permission on something else that I knew would help them. And they had a very controlling spouse. And I said, I think this particular modality, whether it's acupuncture or Reiki, might help you with X, Y, and Z. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a very serious medical issue that they came to me for. And they said, no, because that violates our religious boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I said with Reiki, there's no tie to formal religion, they said, no, they don't believe in it.
Right.
And my heart ached because I had to accept that.
100%.
You
Yep.
see, even though my intention is, I know I want to do Reiki on you because I know it will work,
Right.
right? And so, but they have the right to say no. And that happened even when my dad was dying, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
When my dad was dying, um, I said, you need to go to the hospital or else you're probably going to die. And this was during COVID. And he was a physician who was still practicing medicine. And so he understood more than the average person knows about what happens when you go into the hospital, especially during a shutdown of the pandemic. Even when without the shutdown of the
Yeah.
pandemic, what would
Yeah.
happen in a hospital? And his
Mm-hmm.
thing is, if he's going to die, he wants to die at home, not in
Yeah.
a place like that. Okay? And so I threatened to call an ambulance on him several times, and he said, if you do that, I'll never speak to you again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do was to honor his boundary.
Yeah.
Because I also knew that could he possibly be still alive today? Possibly. I don't know. But he made the decision that he was not going to go to the hospital, and he has the right to say no,
Right. 100%. And it's
even
like
though I
any,
don't agree.
right. It's any healing, right? Everyone has free will. And so unless they consent, and also too has to be the level of belief. If they don't believe it's going to work, it probably won't work, right? If you're going to be sending some sort of
Absolutely.
energy healing and everything like that. But also going back to your point of how people, maybe they believe that they're fully healed and we know that, as healers, like there's always a new level to be healing. I think it's okay. Like you don't have to constantly every single day be in this state of I'm healing this, I'm healing that, right? Like I'm looking at this shadow today, I'm looking at that. I think there is definitely, it's like the law of rhythm, right? Like it goes up and down. There's times that we're really in a high vibrational place, we're really feeling in our true essence. And then there's a time when then we start to our next level of healing or the next layer becomes into our awareness that we become aware of that we have to address. And so we literally can't stay up here all the time and shouldn't, right? Because you would burn out and it's just not the way we're meant to be. We are meant to heal all of these things. And now we're realizing, as you said, we're healing the lineages, we're healing the past lives, we're healing the our ancestors' traumas that they went through that were carried in our DNA. So yes, we are in this deep time of healing as beings, right? And it's important work. And yes, we should be healing ourselves and going through this before we go and say, okay, now I'm going to go heal this person without doing the work ourselves. So I
Right.
totally resonate with everything you've said around that.
I
But if
use the
someone,
analogy. Sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I use the analogy of the whale. The whale goes deep into the darkness where the sun doesn't shine, but it
Hmm.
doesn't stay there forever.
Yeah.
It comes up for breath and it may jump out of the water and make some sounds, have some babies, and it goes back down again, right?
Hmm.
So it's a dance and it's knowing when it's I always say it's this is where the inner knowing, really listening to the body, because when you can do that, you will know when to move, when to go deep, when to play.
Hmm.
And it's not what our mind says we should do, it's what the body says it needs to move forward. I think
Yeah.
that's the trick.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, with the layers, it's like you just don't even realize how many to get to that root cause, right? That root cause of like whatever it is you're dealing with in the moment. You don't know how many layers deep it goes or how many past lifetimes it comes from. And again, we can go on a whole different tangent of time's not real and we've lived all the lives at the same time and blah blah blah. But like I'll just give you an example of like I was healing my father's death, and I didn't allow myself to grieve from it, and that caused havoc in my body, right? Like every time
Yeah.
I'd start crying, I'd push it down and be like, and or not even cry at all, right? Then really allowing myself to feel it and alchemize it and let it go. But then it would come up again. And then I remember this last time where I was, just asking, I was at an event, and the person that was leading the seminar was like, ask yourself, ask your body, your angels, your higher self, what is it that you need to heal right now? What is it that's ready to be let go of? And my father's death came up again. And I was like, what the actual hell? Like, I have healed this so many times. So I didn't understand. And till obviously I'm going through this thing, realizing as we were going through the practice, it was actually, I hadn't healed it in an inner child level yet. Like I hadn't even
Mm.
addressed that inner child that needed that healing from that experience, right? Who lost their
Yes.
father. And it was so profound. But that's what I'm saying. Like you don't even realize sometimes, like you can't have it all at once.
No.
It's just not possible. Like it's possible, but it's not going to help you for your highest good to have all of the healing at one time sometimes for something.
It's, I always say, doing the, especially the trauma work, is trauma doesn't happen. What happened to you is like what breaks doesn't take. It may take a second for it to fracture, but it could take, depending on where you are in your life and developmental and where you are in your growth and all these things,
Yeah.
it could take months, it could take years, it could take a lifetime, and we have to be okay with that, right?
Hmm.
And one of the biggest medicines in understanding this is like that little channeled prayer that I kind of just read off earlier. It's recognizing the wise woman within. And when we
Hmm.
can understand and remember her, because she is our mother, our grandmother, our great grandmother. Well, I didn't have a great relationship with my mother. Well, then your job is to probably heal that and
Hmm.
then reclaim all that, because the problem is like, I mean, the same thing with my mother. Like when my mother was fabulous growing up until I was like a teenager, then she was like Cruella de Vil. And
Hmm.
then I stopped. I didn't have a relationship with her very much on and off because I didn't quite understand her own wounding at the time. So my response was cut her off, cut her
Yeah.
off, cut her off. Right? Pull the guillotine down. Right? And what I noticed later on, and I was her power of attorney for and her healthcare proxy for 15 years, and what happened was all these things started coming up.
Hmm.
And I think the icing on the cake was when she said, like, I think she had developed dementia and she was having 6 to 10 collapsing episodes a year, resulting in blackouts and head traumas, which is what partly got her the dementia to begin with, and the over medication. That's a whole topic for another day. But to make a long story short, as I said, she's going to die a miserable old woman because she is nasty as you know what. But the last 6 months of her life gave my mother back.
Hmm.
And dementia actually became the gift.
Hmm.
And because she was able to bypass the trauma responses that
Yeah.
became her kind of nasty, I was able to go in and, like a surgeon, and help repair that part of the lineage up to my grandmother.
Hmm.
And so much so that I did a closing death ceremony for my mother as she was dying. And I
Hmm.
had all the nurses and everybody else was there. And it was about a 4 hour process. And it was quite interesting that I had some frankincense. You're not supposed to bring stuff to burn in a nursing home, but I made a push for it. And at the end, and then the nurse, one of the nurses there said, identified herself as a nurse that my mother taught to become a nurse.
Hmm.
That was helping my mother die. Like, talk about that kind of circle around, right? And she was talking to me about doing hospice work. And I said, yeah, I do hospice work. And we were talking about like my grandmother's like last wish and helping her in the dying process and things like that. And my mother, I said, I'm hoping people don't get offended, but let's just say it's adult toys. I think my mother would have been happy with at the end,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all kind of had this little chuckle, kind of
Yeah.
like this whatever. And as I'm packing up my stuff and I'm looking at the frankincense actually in this, for those, I don't know if this is going to be on video or not, but this is my little cauldron
Yeah.
that I brought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I have frankincense in there. And when I pulled it out of there, I kid you not, and I can send you a photo later, it looked like a you know what. And it
Oh, that's
wasn't
so
my
fun.
imagination. Two pieces of frankincense merged, complete intact as something very erect.
Oh
And
gosh,
it's
so
not me
fun.
seeing through something because all the nurses saw it instantly. We all started laughing. I said, my mother heard us and she had to have the last laugh, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And so this is just showing you like how even with healing the lineage, like I was able to heal that
Mm-hmm.
piece. And now I'm trying to go back because I've had this block after my grandmother for about 1,000 years on that Irish side of like, and I keep saying, geez, what the heck happened? I can't seem to pierce that veil, right? And so what I found very helpful is really having the curious mind of the child and not making it work.
Mm.
When we approach it with curiosity,
And you're talking about healing, right?
yes, like we
Mm-hmm.
approach healing, whether it's healing the lineage, healing yourself, healing the generations, whatever that is, we are coming at it from a higher frequency so we can see clearer and pierce through it easier versus when
Mm-hmm.
we're in a lower density vibration. It's harder to see,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the storm's all around you, it's all consuming, right? So this is where like the balance of, those elements, but even in the Japanese, like the Shinto traditions and the indigenous Japanese traditions, they understood this. They understood, for instance, like anger and worry to be like the root of all illness and disease.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, those are
know,
lower vibrations and and exactly it's like when your body is in dis-ease, it's literally creating disease. And
yeah,
that really happens too, is when we don't allow ourselves to feel the emotions and to alchemize them and to release them, right? And let them go. We end up storing them in our bodies,
yep,
which is a lot about how I with my healing and how I do is finding where in our body we're storing these stored emotions. And this could come
absolutely,
from the past, it could come from the womb, it could come from our past
yes,
lives. Like it's really interesting of how we actually store these emotions because we haven't allowed ourselves to feel them because society has taught us not to feel that we can't be
yes,
vulnerable, we can't let people see us cry, and it's shameful to cry in public, or and also it makes other people uncomfortable, so we don't want to make other people uncomfortable because we're crying in public, right? Like, or
right.
it can go on and on and on, but like
And
if
can we even share like what feeling is too? Because feelings doesn't mean anxiety, depression, sadness. Feeling means I feel a tightness in my chest. I
Mhm.
feel little gurglies in my stomach. That is feeling. And I think we have a misunderstanding of what feeling is when we say, what are we feeling? Because I know when working with my clients and when they start using labels, I know they're not feeling.
Mm.
So be
Interesting.
very mindful of like, are you labeling or are you actually feeling?
Well, I mean, I think that's harder for the average human to wrap their brain around, right? And I
Yeah,
think we give things labels, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, is because it helps our logical mind actually be able to understand things and process it. So, yes, I totally get what you're saying, but also I don't feel like it's wrong to give yourself
right,
that feeling, that label, because that's just the way our human brain works until you can eventually really learn how to tap into your body and feel in your body where you're feeling that sensation, right? And
right.
so I think it's just a way for us, because we're here to be human after all, like
Absolutely.
literally, right? Like that's another purpose of life, is to
Yeah,
experience what it is to be a human. So I think it could be both and, to be honest.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I would love really quickly, for you, if you could give someone a tip of like, if they're feeling like they have something to let go of or something to process or heal, or they have been bypassing their emotions, right? Like what is like one easy technique or protocol or tool that they can start implementing in their daily lives to help them to start to allow themselves to, feel those emotions when they come up or
Mhm.
process or heal, start to do the healing process on their own.
So I would invite the listeners to listen to the triggers as your guide. And when you find yourself triggered, recognize it for what it is without labels. And
Mm-hmm.
just maybe put your hand on your heart. So you're stopping,
Mm-hmm.
you're creating a pause, which means when you're creating the pause, you're creating space. And when you create that space and you pause, and then you bring the breath in. Because when we're breathing, now we're bringing in another action.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting out of the head now by doing this.
Yes.
And now by doing this, we're creating the breath, we're paying attention to our physical body and how it's responding to this distress or to this trigger. And then by creating that space, now we get clarity to know what's the action step. Does
Mm-hmm.
this mean I need to leave the room and maybe go scream somewhere? Does it mean I need to create maybe more space so I can respond to that trigger in a more effective manner that doesn't perpetuate harm?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean, oh, geez, I didn't realize that was there? I didn't realize this was connected to X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
as a door opener, right? Or maybe it's a, geez, I didn't realize my breath was really that labored.
Or
And
shallow,
so,
right?
right? So it's like all these things, it's bringing that awareness piece in. And the action piece, people say, well, what do I do with the action? Well, the action is going to be different for everybody. It's creating that space to know what the next step is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's a great just awareness, bringing awareness to it. So that's wonderful. So thank you so much for being here today. I would love to know how do you work with people and like what kind of ways do you work with them and where can people find you?
So I'm on all social media platforms, I think. Laura Healing with Spirit or Healing Trauma Through Spirit. The website is www.laurahealingwithspirit.com. I'm also on Amazon. And although that's still under Laura Bonetzky Joseph, not Laura Bonetzky Gaffney, because I got married this year. And we'll be starting a new program called The Embodied and Liberated Wise Woman. And it will
Mm,
be a 9-month journey into being pulled into that deeper, something ancient, embodied, rooted, and alive part of ourselves, and that quieter peace, and bringing in that integrity, bringing in those deeper teachings, and really accessing the medicine through all the kind of the chaos that's all around us. And so, yeah, that starts in February. And that's on Zoom.
beautiful.
So I work on Zoom and in person.
Amazing. That is so good. It sounds like a beautiful healing journey and just transforming into this, beautiful trueness that we really came to be, right? So I
Yeah,
love
I think the one thing moving into 2026, being the year of the like this is the year of the snake, right? So this
right.
was a
We're
lot of
shedding.
shedding, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
shedding, a lot of letting go, a lot of birthing. Next year being the fire horse. This is about liberation and freedom, and
Mm,
this is about not being afraid to walk through the fire.
got it.
So it's how do we take it? So this is why like activist work, social justice work matters in the healing spaces and healing communities because that's where we're going to get liberated. This is where we're going to actually really access the real big medicine.
I love that. I'll leave it on that because that's really powerful. So, thank you again for being here and sharing
Thank
your wisdom with us all and your love and your light. And I so appreciate you. So, thank you again. And we will see you next time on the Light Council series, everyone.